Okay, so hello everyone, how are you all doing? So, welcome you all to yet another live stream. Today we have with us Aditya Thakur. He's a Flutter developer, currently working as a developer advocate at 100 MS. He has also a YouTube channel. He has 6,000 plus members on YouTube, and he also has his Discord community of more than 1,000 people in it. Before we welcome him, just I will just give you an update about Hacking Heist 2.0 and tell you about what is it. So Hacking Heist 2.0 is a 36-hour virtual hackathon that is going to be on 24th to 26th of June. So if you haven't registered till now, just go ahead at hackingheist.study and yeah, just register it. And a few updates about Hacking Heist 2.0. Um, we are we have currently crossed the mark of 950 registrations. Soon we'll be having 1,000 registrations in our on our hackathon. And also talking about Discord, we have around 2,000 members till now. So yeah, if you haven't joined, just let me bring up a banner here. Okay. Yeah, here it is. Just go ahead at this link and join our Discord. Another banner. Yeah. So during this session, just go ahead and take a screenshot between the session and post it on Twitter and tag Aditya Thakur and Hacking Heist on Twitter. And we will be picking any one of you for the giveaway, and the lucky one will be getting an exclusive T-shirt from Hacking Heist. So yeah, that's that from the giveaway part. Um, yeah, so let's just invite Aditya right now, and a huge round of applause for Aditya in the chat. So yeah, here he is.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Awesome. So would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and present my screen. Also, congratulations on the registrations. Like of all people, I think hackathons are a great way to, put yourself out there, build something new over the weekend. So if you can just add my screen to the.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah, here it is.
all right. So, hello everyone. Really excited to be here today. I am Aditya Thakur, as already introduced. I am a Flutter developer. I've been working with Flutter for around 2 years now. I have previously interned at a few startups. Presently, I'm working as developer advocate at 100MS. 100MS is a video SDK company. We help you with the things on the server side that would help you get your video, audio apps out there. And beyond that, I've been quite active in the community. I've been a speaker at Flutter Vikings, the Global Summit. I also make YouTube videos, have a YouTube channel. And also I have a 1000 plus developer community on Discord. We majorly talk about Flutter and things around that. Talking about that, today's session would be on Flutter 3.0, something that is new in the Flutter community, something we have been discussing a lot. And before I go into that, again around that hackathon wala part, like for me, a good start in the community or within Flutter community itself was through hackathons. Like I initially started out building projects as some of these hacks, then it evolved into talking to more people on the server, and then gradually delivering sessions, one of which I'm doing right now. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you get some value out of this session. I will be telling you about what all we'll be talking about today. So I want to start out with like what is Flutter, like generally around it, because there are a lot of people who are not familiar when they are joining such hackathon workshops. We would go into that. After that, we would just go into like what is new, and lastly, I would want to like conclude with why could you be building your hack during this hackathon, or particularly like generally at any hackathon. Why could you be building something with Flutter? Because Flutter is relatively a very easier tech stack. You can get started off the weekend, and you can build not only mobile applications but like web apps, desktop applications, and it generally adds to your overall presentation. Like imagine going to a hackathon and you go out there and tell people like, okay, this is something you have built and it is compatibly running on all your mobile devices, Android, iOS, also on like desktop apps, and also has a web app. So that would be really cool. And I have also used it as a pitch at some of the hackathons that I have participated in, and it generally adds some brownie points because it provides this ease of access or accessibility to something that you build. So we would be talking about that, and if I go a bit fast, you can always tell me to stop. If I start to like blabber a lot, you can tell me about that as well. But generally, like, there would be such instances. I think there is a power cut here. I'll just turn this off for a bit. So I'll return with that whenever the electricity comes back. But let's just get started with the session. So talking about Flutter, what is Flutter, and why should you even be concerned about it? So Flutter is this SDK, or more importantly, a UI toolkit that lets you build across devices. Like, it lets you build mobile applications, you can build web applications with it, and it is an open framework, like open source framework by Google for majorly building beautiful natively compiled applications for multiple platforms. So that is in like definition what it is. Simply put, what you can do with Flutter is it's a framework. So you can write your code in a language called Dart, and you can build applications for multiple devices using the same code base. That gives you a lot of advantages. As developers, you can recycle a lot of things that you do. You don't have to differently have to write with different tech stacks. As a student, you have the advantage of learning one particular framework and getting to build different applications for a plethora of devices, I would say, because under mobile devices, under web applications, you cover a lot of things, and you would learn to do that with Flutter. It's fast, it's very productive framework, very easier to get started with, and it's also very flexible when it comes to UI. You can customize every pixel on screen. So that is that. A lot of advantages with Flutter. You can reach you can reach a lot of users when you're building for all these multiple devices, which is also a big advantage, and it is trusted by many right now here in India. If you are into like stock market or trading, there is this app called Zerodha, the Kite application, which is built completely in Flutter. So it's a trusted framework. It's not something that recently came. Like, it is quite a young framework, but it's not something like, okay, I cannot build with this. It's very unstable and such things. Flutter is very well used in the industry, and it has been like used by Google Pay applications, so you can trust it. You can start learning it and possibly even find a job in Flutter. So there are a lot of applications built with it. There's the Philips Hue application that is built in Flutter. Um, Alibaba uses it. BMW app is built in Flutter, and they have like the biggest team after Google of Flutter developers. Tencent uses Flutter, and recently they like ByteDance has been using it for its own application, which is something new I learned. Interestingly, PUBG uses some part of Flutter, but that could be for like the Flutter engine for rendering or something. I don't really know about that, but that was an interesting revelation or something that I recently found out. So it's supported by Google. It's open to everyone. It's open source framework. You can go ahead and go over to their GitHub repo, and you can just look at issues, maybe contribute something to it. That is there. And Dart is the language which we write code in. So if you are new to Flutter, the programming language that we work with is called Dart language. It's a lot similar to Java if you have worked with that previously, and also very easier to get started with. Like, it would take you some time to just get familiar with it, but it's very optimized language, and it can help you build these fast applications. So within the latest news itself, we like see this article on like introduction to Flutter 3.0, which was the latest edition, and this is by Tim Sneath himself, who is the product manager for Flutter. What majorly happened in Flutter 3.0 was, before Flutter 3.0, you could build applications for like mobile devices, web, and Windows. In Flutter 3, they added support for Mac OS and Linux applications. This was recently announced at Google I/O, which is a very big event. Flutter 3 adds this stable support for Mac OS and Linux apps. There were a few presentations around it. There is also a lot of things new in the material design side, like Flutter 3 also adds support for Material 3 or Material U, which were the latest UI guidelines. So that is something we would be looking at. There are new things in Firebase and Flutter, and there's a new casual games toolkit which was recently announced. But let's just go back to the presentation. I think it's much better explained there. Uh, so this is a infographic by one of the community people, by Akanksha Singh, who goes by the username CoderJD, and she has made like she has included all the things that were announced at the Flutter Google I/O around Flutter 3. So the first thing that obviously comes out is the stable support for Mac OS and Linux app. For a long time, the applications that you could build were when I started out with Flutter, you could only build for Android and iOS, the two platforms. It was a cross-platform framework, but you could build only mobile applications for Android as well as iOS. So after that, they added support for web, which I believe came out with Flutter 2, and you could build applications for web, which was also very cool. Like initially, going from mobile devices to web was something, something sort of a superpower. Like you could now build for these three platforms. Uh, Only recently they announced stable support for Windows. But now, like with Flutter 3, you can build for Mac OS and Linux too. Initially you had to do that in beta, or maybe switch branches and try to build applications if you wanted to. But what this does is, like, all the new projects that you would create would come with this support for like all these different six platforms, which is a very big advantage, and also a very new thing. Like you can now build using the same code base for all these six platforms without having to worry about like switching to a different branch or switching to something else. Let's just test it out. Like I have Flutter installed on my system, so I'll go over to the terminal. This is the terminal. I just zoom in a bit. Okay. Okay, I'll just struggle with it a bit, but let's just try to run the Flutter version command. So this should take some time, but okay. So I'm right now on Flutter version 3.0.1, which is the latest stable version. And for some reason, I cannot zoom in. I'm really bad with the touchpad thing here. But anyways, if it's not visible quite clearly, I would just dictate it. So it's Flutter 3.0.1, and what we'll try to do is just create a new Flutter project. I'll do that on my desktop. So I'll just change directory to desktop, and here I'll run the Flutter create command, which is used to create a new Flutter project. I'll give it a name, maybe something like new app, which is something I usually go with. So Flutter create new app is the command that I am running in my terminal to create this new Flutter project. It takes some time, like it does that, but it's a bit fast. I can open it in a code editor. I would say the command isn't found. So I'll open it on Visual Studio Code. I'll have to go over to my desktop and open this Flutter project. So this is it. Like this is the Flutter project right now running in the Visual Studio Code. And what you'll see is there is a iOS folder which has like the iOS side of things. There is the Android folder which would have like the Android side of code. There's a Linux, a Mac OS, and a web folder, and also a Windows folder. So all these different like six folders are here, and all you have to do is write code for like Flutter inside this lib folder. So if you're unfamiliar with how like writing code in Flutter works, so all you have to do is like write code in main.dart inside this lib folder. All your Flutter files would go here, and everything that you write would be natively compiled to these six different platforms. You can also make some modifications if you want in these folders, but it's not generally required. Flutter handles that for you. So it makes it really easy to build for all these six different platforms in stable version right now. So that is a very big advantage that comes out with Flutter 3.0. Now, if you like go down inside your Visual Studio Code, you can check out like all the different devices you can run your app on. I can run it on web like a Chrome. I can run it on desktop. I'm on Mac OS right now, so I can run it here. If it were like a Windows device, I could have run it as a Windows application. I can start a iOS simulator, run an iOS app, or I can maybe start like a mobile emulator, run a Android mobile application. So all this, like all these different devices to run your application on, made like really easy with Flutter, and it has now truly become like a completely cross-platform framework, like which offers you support in stable. So that is first, like supports stable support for Mac OS and Linux. Then comes the Material Design 3, which is the latest edition. So Material Guidelines, or the Material 3 guidelines, have been here for a while. I think the Material Design 3 was announced, I believe, last year. But right now, Flutter has added like stable support for it. It's although not complete right now, like there are a few things being done. There is a umbrella issue that you can look up to track all these different things. Like Material Design is this right now available in like opt-in support for Flutter. It includes all these features like dynamic color, updated color system, typography changes, and all that. It's largely complete, although there are a few visual elements or component updates left. So if you want to like track these different issues, okay, I'm going. Okay, so this is the issue that tracks bringing Material 3 to Flutter. It's 91605. What it has is like the different information about what Material 3 is, what is already done. Some of the tasks have been completed, but there are a few things that are left that are being done by the Flutter team. And what Material 3 brings is, let's just check this out. So what I'll do is I'll start maybe a mobile emulator, like an Android emulator here. Uh, I'll try to run my application on it. So this application should say take some time to build, and then it would run on this mobile device. Material 3 has updated a lot of things. Like you can see there are some new buttons added. The way the floating action button was has been changed. There is a new navigation bar, updates to the journal guidelines that were introduced with Material 3. So I'll wait for this application to run. Right now, with Flutter 3, this Material Design, or if you want to use Material 3 inside your Flutter application, what you can do is you can opt in for it. Like you can toggle a switch to probably activate it. So if you go down to your theme data, you can type in use Material 3 and set this to true. So we'll wait for this application to just finish building. So the app has been built, and it will just run it this inside my emulator. Okay, so I'll take it to the side. I will minimize this a bit so you see it like adjacent to each other. So this is like the default application. As Flutter developers, when you run your Flutter project, this is the first application that you see on the screen. This is a very simple application. If you click on this floating action button, you'll see like a counter increment on screen. um, so this is like the journal application that we are accustomed to. If you are like new to Flutter, if you'll run your first Flutter project, this is what you will come across to. But if you have been working with Flutter, like you must know about this. This is the first thing that you see every time you run a new Flutter project. Now what Material 3 is, like it is available in opt-in support. So you can go down to your theme data and you can type in use Material and set this to true. uh, this would this would what it would do is, like if I just save my file and restart my application, you'll see like the default project that we had updated to this new one. So now the app bar color has gone. It has become white, but what you'll notice is the floating action button has updated a bit. It has become more square. Like it was first a circle, now it is more of a square. So these are like the new changes that are there in Material 3. So this was like the Material 2 design of floating action button. Is it was a bit round, somewhat like this. The buttons looked a bit square, but in Material 3 you have like updated it a bit. They have updated it a lot. Actually, it has become more, I would say, pleasing to the eye. So I have been working with UI UX a bit, and the journal design system has changed a lot. As in, uh, the material too has had become a bit outdated. So if you have been working with Flutter, if you have like worked with the few startups, you would get all these designs, which I feel would become easier to implement with Material 3. Like generally, the designs now look more of like this. There are component updates, like the app bar has this new update. So initially the app bar looked something like this, but now it would look more sleeker with the colors. And you also have access to all these new properties, the surface tint color, the scroll under elevation, and all these things. You can modify these properties to get effect like this. So this is the surface tint color. Like when you scroll up, you'll see like a small color change in the app bar. And you can also update the elevation of the app bar. So initially, like the previous Material 2 app bars had a elevation, and you can modify it using elevation if you have worked with Flutter. But with Flutter 3, like this default elevation is set to 3, but you can change it once you scroll up, or you change some if you want to change it later on. There's the new bottom navigation bar. Like the old navigation bar looked like this, which you could create using bottom navigation bar. But now in Flutter 3, you have something called a navigation bar. So let's just quickly check it out. Maybe so if I'll go down to my build function, here we have the scaffold. I'll get rid of some of the code from here. Like let's just go under app bar and try to create a bottom navigation bar. So before, like Flutter 3, we used to do like a bottom navigation bar, something like that. This was the thing that was used initially. But now what you have to do is you have to go to navigation bar, and this would take in something called a list of destinations. So this destinations would be what you want to navigate to when you click on a bottom navigation bar item. So this takes in navigation bar, navigation destination. Yep. Yeah, okay. So it takes in something called navigation destination, which would have like an icon. So I can give it an icon. I can type in icon, give it some icon, like let us say icons dot, and you can select an icon from this exhaustive list, maybe like a battery 6 bar, and give it some label. Let's say battery. So this is simple. What you can do is you can add like multiple items to this list. Like right now we have only added one, so you can add like 2-3 items, maybe change the icon a bit. Just say headphones, and maybe something else around it. Okay, so I can change this text a bit, and I'll have this different list. What I'll also have to do is like I can create a new variable called int current index equal to 0, and also a new function which would update this index once I navigate to a new page. Index, which would take in like this int I, and it would just set state to update the current index to this value that I pass in, that is I. I'll come down to my I have to give this in selected index, current index. On destination selected, set current index. Okay, let's just save this. So you'll see like this navigation bar added to our app example right now, and I can clone this, and you'll see like a change happen here. So this is a bit prettier. Like I gave it some random names like battery charge and Wi-Fi, but this looks a bit prettier as compared to what we had on Material 2. So this makes it a bit easier to build applications that I have like more modern UI in Flutter. So these are some of the changes. There have been a few updates in like colors and themes. Right now, what you can do is with colors, they have added a lot of new groups. There are tertiary and container colors available now, and a few colors have been deprecated. So primary variant and secondary variant have been deprecated. What Material 3 also has is like this dynamic theming. So if you have, like, it matches to your style, like if you have a somewhat like this wallpaper, so it would change the color of some of the elements on your screen using that. So with like these modifications to like color scheme, you can, better adapt uh, your app to colors that you want. And there is a very interesting talk by Mike on this. Like, he talks about material theming and all that stuff. So if you want to check that out, you can go over to Twitter and try to find that there. uh, but there have been some updates to typography as well. Like before Material 3, there were only like 6 headline variation, but Material 3 also adds like the smaller, medium and large variations to your typography, which is quite cool. So now you have like different variants to it. You can use the Google Fonts package to, update the font and get some things out there. Adaptability too, with Flutter 3 in general. Like Flutter 3 adds support for foldable screens as well. So you want your applications to be adapted. Material 3 also does something similar. Like, it wants to build that adaptive, you know s- adaptive screen. It should adapt to the different screen sizes. Like, the apps are running on watch faces, mobile devices, tablets, and even beyond that, like home devices and also laptops and all sorts of devices. So you want your apps to be both adaptive to all these different screens. So coming back to what all is new in Flutter 3, we talked about material design a bit. We like saw a few changes that are there in action by running it on our Flutter like application. There's foldable phone support, which is quite new. Media Query has this list of display features. What you can do is you can try to get more information about the device that your app is running to, build better applications that are also customizable to all these different screen sizes. So other things that are new in Flutter is the crash analytics support. uh, Interestingly, like right now, if you'll create a Firebase project, if you'll start a new Firebase project, you can directly get started by adding like Firebase to your application. So initially there were options like iOS, Android, and web application that you could add. There was a separate one for Unity projects, so you could add Firebase to your Unity projects. But now you would also get like a Firebase, like a proper Flutter option there. So I haven't tried that out because I haven't made a new Firebase project in a while, but this simplifies a lot of things actually. So initially when I started out with Flutter, like Firebase was the official, not the official but the obvious choice to go with when you were working with the backend. There are a lot of Firebase alternatives available right now, but Firebase was just easier to get started with Flutter. Like, you were building an application with Flutter, you would just go with Firebase. And with this done, like, it would be easier to configure your projects. They had also it's generally been easier with the CLI to configure it, but I haven't tried it out, so I would definitely love to both try it out and also hear from you, like how has your experience been with it. So among other things that are new is like for Mac OS, it adds like this platform rendered menu bar. We'll just see that somewhat in action. So if I come back to the technical if I come back to the Flutter publication on Medium, so this is where like all the new changes are generally announced. So if you're a Flutter developer, I would recommend following this because everything that is new comes out here as a blog post, so you can just read through it to learn about it and now get to know what is new. What they have added is like right now there's this new menu bar, like support for Mac OS system menu bar. So if you're running this, you'll see like a more better cascading menu demo here that you can just check this out. There's full support for international like text input on all desktop platforms. Like, since Flutter offers support for all these different text desktop platforms like Mac OS, Windows and Linux. So you have this now support of international text input. It's accessible on all desktop platforms, like I mentioned, Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Now proper stable support. You can as like of Flutter 3, Flutter Mac OS desktop apps are built as universal binaries. So they have now native support on both like Intel based Macs and also Apple's latest Apple Silicon devices. One thing they have done is deprecated Windows 7 and 8 for development. So now Windows 10 is only the official, like the development Windows that is supported. They do have like the best support, best effort support for the older versions, but it is highly recommended that if you are trying to build Flutter applications, you need to be on like Windows 10 device. So there are a few mobile updates. We talked about foldable phone support. This had been like somewhat in the making. It is spearheaded by Microsoft itself. Like it's being done in collaboration with them. What this does is like now on like foldable devices too, your applications would run fine. So you can adjust. You can try to see like where the fold is and adjust your applications according to that. You'll get information about these hinges and folds and all the cutouts using this new list called display features, which is added to media query. So you can check that out as well. But beyond that, there are some things being done in simplifying the iOS release, Gradle version update, and all these different technical changes that you can read about in this blog. One thing I'm particularly excited about is this web app lifecycle, because generally, if you have previously worked with Flutter applications on web, essentially they take a lot of time to load up. So Flutter app would take some time to load up. Now you can add like a splash screen or a loading indicator using this web app lifecycles. So there is this customizing web app initialization on the docs.flutter dev that you can quickly check out to how to do that. Even beyond this, there are some updates to linter. So like the lint packages have been updated. I've generated like with the Flutter create command already have this Flutter 2.0 set of lints, which will like make it easier to follow the best practices. So what linters do is like they help you gauge where your application, you can set warnings, errors for some things that you don't want. You can customize how code is written in your Flutter projects or generally in your projects if you have a linter enabled. This would add the latest guidelines, the latest version by itself. Like if you run a Flutter create command like we just did, it should have like the latest analysis option and latest version of this Flutter lints in it. So performance improvements, there have been performance improvements with every release that has been there. Inline ads on Android and Material 3, something we have talked about. Theme extensions are here now, enable adding like anything to Material libraries theme data with this new concept called theme extensions. Then there are ads, some breaking changes that if you are a Flutter developer, you should look into. So that is it. I think that would be some of the bigger changes in Flutter 3.0. If you come back to my presentation, what you'll see here is like app lifecycle API, which is there in Flutter Web. Dart 2.17 came out, which has like super initializers, this enhanced enums with members and the named arrays, which are also some new things to check out. So Flutter 3.0, after like community discussions, there have been a lot of discussions since Flutter 3 came out that it was like done in a hurry because the support for Material 3 isn't complete, but still they have announced like Flutter 3. There have been like people talking about it. What I generally feel is like since Google I/O is a big event, I think adding that. It helps you reach out to more people, the hype built around it. So Flutter 3 came out at a good time. Adding this stable support for all these different platforms was really cool. And even beyond that, like it is like the uh, I would say the latest version that you can try your hands on. Flutter 3.0.1 is the latest one. If you run the Flutter upgrade command, so if you have been working on like a previous version, you can quickly run the Flutter upgrade command to upgrade to this like new version of Flutter. But I would recommend, like, if you have some projects that are being developed, and if you don't want to mess some things up, to wait on this. But if you but it is generally recommended to be on like the latest version, because then if you have something, as in, like, if there are always like fixes being added to the Flutter SDK, so that would generally help you. It is both good and bad some ways. So yeah, that would be it. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat. I would be happy to take them up.
Okay, so there are a few questions in the chat. Let me just take it one by one.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so yeah. Um, Someone asked, I want to start fluttering too. So where can
Yeah.
I start?
Okay. This is like
Adding
an
to that,
interesting.
adding to that, he says there are a lot of Udemy courses. So which should I choose? So,
Okay, yeah. So generally speaking, like Flutter is very easy to start learning. Like you can almost learn it over the weekend, as in, you can build your first application and just test it out, like test out the waters and how it feels to you. So generally, if I were to recommend you to start learning Flutter, I would do so by referring you this video tutorial. So there's Vandad. He's a Flutter GD. He has like a complete playlist on YouTube, which is like a Flutter course. It's very extensive. Like it takes you from building smaller applications to it takes you building like a complete application, but it is very detailed when it comes to a Flutter course being made available for free on YouTube, right? So that is there. um, I have a course on Flutter, like it's available on my channel if you want to check that out. That is a small plug. But even beyond this, there are a few Udemy courses. Normally what people do is, they like, one of the popular courses is by Dr. Angela Yu. So she has a Flutter course on building applications, but it is, I feel, somewhat outdated. Like a lot of the applications that are there haven't been updated to the latest, like Flutter do version. I would say, like, it doesn't have null safety in it. So if you're starting out with that, you'll probably get stuck and then you will feel frustrated. You wouldn't continue with Flutter. So I would recommend checking out the YouTube course by Vandad. That is a bit updated. What you can instead also do is, like, maybe follow a small video on like building a to-do application or something around that, because that would be somewhat like a hello world experience in Flutter, and that would tell you a bit about how you can go forward from there. So yeah.
yeah. And also, if you want to get started with Flutter, there is a course on Aditya's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I've pinned the link in the comment section. Just go ahead and click on that, and also the Discord link too. So
Yeah.
if you face any kind of problem, just yeah,
Yeah,
Aditya.
you can go over to like teamaditya.co. It's there, the button to explore, get free Flutter course. I used to have like a resource book on different courses, but I removed that in the latest release. So yeah. Okay, fine.
So like another question is, yeah, Ananya asks, I am in first year and I'm confused
Yeah.
between Flutter and React Native. Please help me out.
Okay, so here's what I think. Majorly, what you should do is, generally I recommend people that you should go ahead with Flutter, and here's why. I would tell you, it's not because I'm biased with Flutter, but I have tried out React and React Native. If you haven't been working with web development, like, since you are in first year, I'm assuming like you haven't done web development at all. I would recommend Flutter because if you are doing development right in your first year, this would open up like six different platforms for you to ship applications to. React Native, I haven't seen them talk as much about other platforms, but it has been a bit buggy on like Android. Like there are a few big companies that had to switch. Like Zerodha was one. They had their application built in React Native, but the Android build wasn't as good, so they had to move to Flutter. That is why I'll recommend Flutter. The other reason is that the community is quite vast. With Flutter developers, like, you'll see a lot of them. React Native is like on the sidelines when it comes to a community like that. Like The web development community is pretty huge, but when it comes down to React Native, I do not know a lot of people that are quite focused on React Native itself. Like I know a few people who do React Native. It's not that, but community wise, it's very small part of the whole React ecosystem. So I feel that on my end. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Another question from Ananya only. And also,
Mm.
can I choose Flutter Web instead of HTML, CSS for
Yeah.
a web dev?
Yeah, so the problem with some of these web framework is like you have to learn a lot of things. Like you have to start out with the basic concepts of HTML, give your website a structure, then add CSS, then add some functionality, then go beyond and learn some framework, and then even frameworks have their other frameworks that help them do something. So it's a lot of things. For new developers it's a lot confusing. Like for me too, it's still a bit confusing. Like you have frameworks on frameworks, and then a lot of things happening, and you have to use this libraries and all that stuff. So with Flutter, what you can do is you have to learn Dart programming language, and that is majorly it. Like you have to write code in Dart, and Flutter would handle the part of building it for the web. And you don't have to do that. Like you don't have to learn HTML CSS per se. Like you don't have to worry about that. You can just go ahead, create a widget, and it would render it on screen for you. That would be it. So I would say, yeah, choose Flutter Web instead. It's a bit slower. That is something I would mention. That is something a lot of people in the Flutter community want me to mention. So if you were to choose to build an application, like a web application, like not a website, if you were to build a website with Flutter or React, I would recommend React. But if you were to build a web application, like there's this small difference. If you were to build a web application, you can always go ahead with Flutter. Yeah.
Like, so what's the difference between a website and a web app?
A website, like the website link that I have shared, like Team Aditya, it's a website. It doesn't do much of a application type stuff. It just shows you some content, and you have some buttons you can click on, and generally some information that you can get. I would recommend web frameworks for this side of things, because they'll load faster. You can quickly see something. You can quickly see the information that you want. But what Flutter would let you do is build a complete application. So that would make it easier. Like you can maybe have people logging in, do some stuff. You can render like images, and you can maybe render some models, and that would be easier with Flutter Web as compared to other frameworks somewhat. Yeah.
Okay, so like if I guess about web app, it's um, I can say the Discord web is the web app, right? Like the
Yeah.
Discord application that I use on my computer. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay, that's the web app. Got it. So yeah, another question from Sas is Aditya sir, can you share your personal experience of becoming a Flutter developer? Like how and where did you start, and what were the projects that you have made till now?
Okay. So I started out with Flutter because I wanted to build applications, put them up on Play Store, and possibly have like sort of like a side thing going on with all the applications that I built. When I started out, the first question was what to learn to build those mobile applications. There were a few options back then as well. Like you could go with Android development, learn Kotlin. Kotlin had caught up. Then it was the official language, and build applications with that, but only for Android. For iOS applications, like you needed a MacBook, and you have to learn Swift to build those. But I came across Flutter through a blog post, and it mentioned that you can build cross-platform applications. So with Flutter, the journey was quite new. Like there weren't a lot of courses, YouTube videos around it. It was like a very new framework. It used to build applications only for Android and iOS. So I started out by chance somewhat, I would say, and then I've been constantly contributing to the community, building projects. Some of the few projects that I built were like the first app that I built was through a YouTube video. It was like a simple to do application. Only to it was not even a to do application, it was like a notes application that was only to learn like how Flutter works. Then I did the Angela U course, but I do not recommend it right now because of the null safety issues. They have been updating it a bit, I think, but like for a newbie, it's somewhat confusing. So I did that course. It was quite detailed, and even before I had like finished the course, I did an internship. There were these new roles available on LinkedIn, and a lot of Flutter developers weren't there, so they asked me if I wanted to pursue it. I was sharing continuously, like that is something about uh, generally talking about tech. Like if you're learning something new or if you're building something, do share about it on all social platforms. It could be a simple post, as in something that you learned today, or some project that you're working on. So you can share about maybe a video of it or some screenshots of it and just put it out there, and it generally helps you with all the opportunities that you get. So I've been offered roles through LinkedIn because of uh, talking about Flutter and all the development that I do with it. So I had shared a few projects, and they reached out and they asked me if I would like to intern with them, and that was how I got my first internship. And ever since, like it has been through like these community connections and all that stuff. Even the latest role, the one that I work at, I've got it through LinkedIn. So I will recommend, if you are learning Flutter, if you're building projects, put them out. Maybe tag me if you want to. Like it generally helps you with the reach. So I would be happy to comment on it. So yeah.
So there was a similar question to this.
Yeah.
Aditya, can you tell me how to get internship in Flutter? So yeah, you can
So
post the development. Yeah, you can.
I think like internships still remain a big challenge. That is something we are trying to work on. We share some of the roles to both our like Discord community and a Telegram channel. And more interestingly, right now there are a lot more startups hiring with Flutter. There was a latest post I saw by, I think it was by one of the bigger companies here in India who were hiring Flutter developers. I think it was TCS or like some company around that was hiring Flutter developers. So it has been changing a bit, but the dynamic is generally like if you want to work as a Flutter intern, I would recommend applying to the some of the startups that you do build with Flutter. So after you build some projects, try to look them up on LinkedIn, or maybe join like communities and try to find roles there, because you'll see a lot of people uh, put roles in such communities. Because if you're a Flutter person and you're looking for Flutter developers, you would generally go to one of these communities, put it up in their opportunities channel, and you can directly talk to people who are interested and offer them a role. So that is why I recommend joining such communities. And even beyond that, like you can just put up a post on LinkedIn and mention like what all roles you are looking for, and generally people reach out from there as well.
So I guess there's one last request from
Mm.
Ananya. It? Yeah, she asked, is it possible to share that table with us? I guess she's referring to the
Yeah,
one.
you can. I can send it to you, or you can look up Coder JD on Twitter. So Akanksha is also very active in the community, so you can follow her as well. She shared this recently, like around Flutter 3, and it is like a very informative infographic. Like it covers all these different changes in Flutter 3.0. So I thought I'll put this up as part of my presentation today.
Like, what was her Twitter ID?
Coder underscore JD, JEDI.
Okay, let me just put her profile onto the chat. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I've shared the Twitter link of her in the on the chat, so you can just go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's all the questions from the chat. So yeah, uh, yeah. If you have any other questions, just go ahead and ask in the chat, or else you can find Aditya. Aditya, can you share your Twitter link too, so that people can ask you there? And also,
Yeah.
you can also join the Discord if you haven't joined till now. Um, of course, of Aditya. So yeah, go ahead and do that. And yeah, if you have any other questions left regarding Flutter and you may face any problem in future, just go ahead and ask him out. So yeah, that's that. And yes, if you haven't taken any screenshot till now, just go ahead right now, or just go back to the stream and take a screenshot and post it on Twitter, tagging Aditya and Hacking Heist. And yeah, one of you will be getting a exclusive T-shirt from our side. And I've also shared Aditya's Twitter link
Yeah.
in the chat. So go ahead and follow him. So yeah, that's all from today's session. And yeah, bye bye everyone. Have a
Bye.
great
Thank
day.
you so much for having me. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye bye.